The twin suns of Kepler 442 were setting over the fields of New Harvest Colony. The sky turned orange and purple as farmers finished their work for the day. Children ran through the tall grass, laughing and playing games, while their parents called them home for dinner. New Harvest was a peaceful place. 12,000 humans lived there, far away from the busy worlds of the Terran Confederation. They grew food, raised families, and lived simple lives. The colony had been there for 28 years, and most people who lived there had been born on that very soil. Catherine Novak stood on the porch of the administration building and watched the suns go down. She was 52 years old and had been the colony administrator for the last decade. She loved this world. She loved its people. She had raised her own children here, and now her grandchildren played in those same fields. Her assistant, a young man named Peter, walked up beside her with a cup of coffee. "Beautiful evening," he said. Catherine nodded. "Every evening here is beautiful." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Peter's communicator beeped. He looked at it and frowned. "That is strange," he said. "The orbital sensors are picking up something entering the system." Catherine felt a small twist in her stomach. New Harvest was far from any major trade routes. They rarely got visitors. "Probably just a cargo ship that took a wrong turn," she said. But she did not believe her own words. They walked inside to the communications center. 3 technicians were already at their stations, their faces showing concern. "Administrator Novak," said Linda, the senior technician. "We have multiple contacts, at least 30 ships. They are not responding to our hails." Catherine moved to the main screen. The ships were large, much larger than anything humans built. Their design was unfamiliar, with sharp angles and dark hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Have you identified them?" Catherine asked. Linda shook her head. "The computer is having trouble matching them to any known species." "Wait. I am getting something now." The screen flickered and displayed a result. Catherine's blood went cold. Fourth Dominion. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vorath. They were conquerors. They had built their empire by crushing 17 different species over 4,000 years. They believed they were the masters of all life, and they treated other races like insects to be stepped on. "Get me a channel to Earth," Catherine said, her voice steady, even though her hands were shaking. "Priority 1. I am trying," Linda said. "They are jamming our long-range communications. I can only get a burst transmission through the relay buoys." Catherine grabbed the microphone. She had only seconds to send a message before the jamming became complete. "This is New Harvest Colony, requesting immediate assistance. Unknown vessels have entered our atmosphere. They are not responding to hails. They are landing ground forces. Please. We have children here. We have—" The jamming cut her off. Static filled the room. Outside, the first Vorath dropships were already landing in the fields. Catherine could hear screaming. "Everyone to the shelters," she ordered. But she knew, deep in her heart, that the shelters would not save them. Nothing would save them. 3 light-years away, Commander Daniel Hayes was working the night shift on Sentinel Prime, an orbital defense station above the planet Novus. He was 41 years old, with gray starting to show in his short brown hair. He had served in the Terran Defense Network for 18 years, and he had never seen real combat. The galaxy had been mostly peaceful during his career. His coffee was growing cold in his hand when the alert came through. "Sir," said his communications officer, a young woman named Rachel. "We are receiving a distress signal. It is fragmented, but I have cleaned it up as much as I can." She played the message. Catherine Novak's voice filled the command center, full of fear and desperation. The message ended in static. Daniel set down his coffee. His hand was not shaking, but his mind was racing. "Where did that come from?" he asked. "New Harvest Colony, Kepler 442 system," Rachel said. "The signature of the attacking ships matches Vorath design." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. New Harvest was a farming colony. They had no defenses, no military presence. They were civilians. He opened a secure channel to Earth. To Fleet Command. Admiral Nathan Cole answered within seconds. The Admiral was an older man, with white hair and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He had been a warrior his entire life. "I heard the message," Cole said. "We are already mobilizing a response fleet." "How long until they can get there?" Daniel asked. There was a pause. 3 days. At maximum speed. 3 days. Daniel felt sick. In 3 days, there would be nothing left to save. "Sir, what do we do?" "We wait," Cole said, and his voice was heavy with anger and pain. "We wait, and we remember. And when the time comes, we make them pay for every single life they take." The response fleet arrived at New Harvest 72 hours later. Captain Marcus Webb led the squadron of 5 destroyers into the system. He was a veteran of 30 years, a man who had seen death before. But nothing had prepared him for what he found. The colony was gone. Every building had been burned to the ground. Marcus sent down a team to investigate. They found 12,000 bodies. Men, women, children. The Vorath had not taken prisoners. They had not enslaved the colonists for labor. They had simply killed everyone and left. One of his officers, a woman named Susan, found something else. A recording device. Hidden in the rubble of the administration building. Catherine Novak had managed to document the attack before she died. The recording showed Vorath soldiers marching through the streets, firing their weapons at anyone who moved. It showed families being dragged from their homes. It showed children crying for their parents. And at the end, it showed a Vorath commander standing over Catherine's body, speaking to the camera. "Let this be a lesson," the commander said. "You humans spread across the stars like vermin. You breed and multiply and take what does not belong to you. The Dominion will not tolerate your presence any longer. Stay in your place or be exterminated." Marcus watched the recording 3 times. Then, the Galactic Assembly met on Axis Prime, a space station built in neutral territory where no species held power over another. It was the largest structure ever created by intelligent beings, a massive ring that floated between 3 dead stars. Representatives from 47 spacefaring civilizations gathered there to discuss matters of peace and war. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell arrived on the station 3 days after the massacre at New Harvest. She was 53 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Before she became a diplomat, she had been a Marine. She had lost her left leg in a battle on the frontier 20 years ago. The prosthetic that replaced it was military grade, stronger than bone and muscle. She walked through the corridors of Axis Prime with her head held high. Other alien delegates watched her pass. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others looked with pity. A few looked with something like fear. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 60 years ago. To the older species, they were children playing in a world they did not understand. Lauren entered the main assembly chamber. It was enormous, a dome of crystal and metal that could hold 10,000 beings at once. Today, only a few hundred were present. This was a closed session, called specifically to address the New Harvest incident. She took her place at the human delegation's platform. Across the chamber, she could see the Vorath delegate, a creature called Voraxis. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in black armor that was part of its body. Its face was a mass of mandibles and compound eyes. When it spoke, its voice was like metal scraping against stone. The assembly president, a being made of living crystal named Prism, called the session to order. "We are here to discuss the recent actions taken by the Vorath Dominion against a human colony," Prism said. Its voice rang through the chamber like a bell. "The Vorath delegate will speak first." Voraxis stepped forward. Its mandibles clicked together as it prepared to speak. The colony known as New Harvest was located in a region designated for Dominion expansion, Voraxis said. The humans were warned that this area was not available for settlement. They chose to ignore our warnings. We simply enforced our territorial rights. Lauren felt her hands tighten into fists. The expansion corridors Voraxis mentioned were a lie. The Vorath had invented them after the colony was already established. They changed their maps whenever they wanted something that belonged to someone else. The delegate from Earth may respond, Prism said. Lauren stood. She activated her personal projector and sent an image into the center of the chamber. It was a photograph of the mass graves at New Harvest. 12,000 people, Lauren said. Her voice was calm and clear. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. The youngest victim was 3 months old. The oldest was 92 years. They did not have weapons. They did not have soldiers. They had farming tools and school books. She changed the image. Now it showed the bodies arranged in patterns, symbols that meant something in Vorath culture. Your soldiers did not just kill them. They arranged the bodies like art. They made our dead into decorations. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Even species that had little love for humanity seemed disturbed. Voraxis made a sound that might have been laughter. They were pests, it said. We removed them. This is not murder. This is pest control. Your species breeds too fast and spreads too far. You are like insects, crawling across worlds that do not belong to you. The Dominion did the galaxy a service. Lauren let the words hang in the air. She wanted every delegate in the chamber to hear them. She wanted them to remember. Pest control, she repeated. That is what you call the murder of children. I call it what it is, Voraxis replied. Your species is weak. You come from a world that should have killed you long ago. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. You are soft and fragile. The only reason you have survived this long is because the galaxy has been patient with you. Lauren smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You think we are weak because we do not have claws or fangs, she said. You think we are soft because our skin does not stop bullets. Let me tell you something about Earth, Delegate Voraxis. Let me tell you about the world that made us. She changed the projection again. Now it showed Earth, the blue marble floating in space. This is a death world, Lauren said. Category 4. One of the most dangerous environments in known space. The gravity is higher than most species can survive. The temperature varies from hot enough to boil water to cold enough to freeze flesh solid. Our planet is covered with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and poisons. She zoomed in on images of Earth's wildlife. Lions, sharks, venomous snakes, massive storms, erupting volcanoes. We did not evolve on a paradise like the Vorath homeworld. We evolved in hell. Every human alive today is descended from generations of survivors. We learned to hunt animals that could kill us with one bite. We learned to build shelters against storms that could flatten mountains. We learned to cure diseases that killed millions. Lauren turned to face Voraxis directly. You call us soft. But we are the species that chased our prey until they died of exhaustion. We are the species that tamed fire and turned it into a weapon. We are the species that climbed to the top of the food chain on a world that tried to kill us every single day. The chamber was silent. Even Voraxis had stopped clicking its mandibles. The Terran Confederation came to this assembly seeking peace, Lauren continued. We asked for arbitration. We asked for justice. Instead, we received insults and threats. So let me make our position clear. She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate she could see. As of this moment, the Terran Confederation formally declares a state of war against the Vorath Dominion. You wanted to teach us a lesson at New Harvest. Instead, you woke something that was sleeping. You poked a predator and expected it to run away. She began walking toward the exit. You will learn what Deathworlders do when you threaten their children. You will learn what humans become when we have nothing left to lose. And when this war is over, when your empire is dust and your armies are broken, you will remember that it all started Because you thought we were weak. She stopped at the door and looked back at Voraxis. We are not weak. We are patient. And our patience just ran out. Lauren walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the assembly erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted and argued. Some demanded that humanity be censured for such aggressive language. Others quietly contacted their home governments to discuss the possibility of alliance. Voraxis stood in silence for a long moment. Then, it sent a message to the Vorath homeworld. The humans have declared war. They are fools. They do not understand what they face. The Dominion will crush them, as we have crushed all others. High Commander Vorathos received the message in his palace, surrounded by trophies from 17 conquered species. He read it twice, and then laughed. Let them come, he said. It will be entertaining to watch them die. Earth had not prepared for total war in over 2 centuries. The last real conflict, a border fight with the Krell Collective, had lasted only 6 months and cost fewer than 1,000 lives. This would be different. This would be a fight for survival against an empire that had never known defeat. Admiral Nathan Cole stood in the war room beneath New Geneva, the capital of the Terran Confederation. Around him, holographic displays showed fleet positions, factory outputs, and intelligence reports on Vorath military strength. The numbers were not good. They have 3 times our number in capital ships, said General Patricia Long, commander of ground forces. Their technology is equal to ours in most areas and better in some. Their empire spans 400 worlds. We have 47. Tell me something I do not know, Cole said. They have never fought a species from a death world. Cole nodded slowly. That was the one advantage humanity had. Every other species the Vorath had conquered came from gentle worlds, places where evolution was kind and survival was easy. Those species had never needed to develop the killer instinct that lived in every human heart. Defense Secretary Kyle Morrison entered the room. He was a civilian, but he had grown up in a military family and understood war better than most politicians. The assembly has finished voting, he said. Most species are staying neutral, but we have received offers of support from the Krell, the Villani, and the Thorn. They have all suffered under Vorath expansion, and they want to see the Dominion fall. How much support? Cole asked. Supplies, intelligence, and safe harbor for our ships. No combat troops. They are afraid of what the Vorath will do if they join openly. Cole understood. The Vorath were known for their brutality. Any species that opposed them faced the same fate as New Harvest. What about our own forces? Cole asked. General Long pulled up a new display. We are calling up every reservist and every veteran willing to serve. The shipyards on Mars and Titan are running around the clock. We can double our fleet strength in 6 months. We do not have 6 months, Cole said. The Vorath will attack within weeks. They will try to end this war before we can mobilize. Then we need to buy time, Morrison said. Hit them first. Make them defend their own territory. Cole studied the star map for a long moment. His eyes found a cluster of red dots in a region called the Crimson Reach, a nebula filled with gas and dust that made sensors unreliable. They have a forward operating base here, he said. 60 ships, supply depots, repair facilities. That is deep in their territory, Long said. We would need to commit a significant portion of our fleet. If the attack fails, we lose everything. If we do nothing, we lose anyway, Cole replied. The Vorath expect us to defend. They expect us to wait for them to come. We need to show them that humans do not wait. We attack. He turned to his aide. Get me Captain Christopher Grant. Tell him the Valor is going to war. Captain Grant was 40 years old, with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much of the galaxy. He had commanded the USS Valor for 5 years, and in that time, he had turned its crew into a family. The Valor was the flagship of the Terran fleet, 2 kilometers of armor, weapons, and engines. It was the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Grant received his orders while eating dinner in his quarters. He read them twice, and then smiled. Finally, he said. He called his senior officers to the briefing room. Commander Lisa Park, his executive officer, arrived first. She was Korean-American, small and fierce, with a tactical mind that had won simulated battles against opponents twice her size. Chief Engineer Robert Gray came next, a big man with hands that could fix anything. Weapons Officer James Keller followed, young and eager, barely 30 years old, but already one of the best gunners in the fleet. "We have our mission," Grant said when they were all seated. "We are leading an attack on the Vorath forward base at Crimson Reach. 37 ships against 60. We leave in 12 hours. Lisa studied the tactical data. "The nebula will give us cover, but it will also blind our sensors. We will be fighting close, probably visual range." "Good," Keller said. "I prefer to see what I am shooting at." "This is not a game," Grant said. "Some of us are not coming back. I need you all to understand that. I need you to be ready for it." The room was silent for a moment. Then Gray spoke. "Captain, I have been in this fleet for 20 years. I joined because I wanted to see the stars. But after New Harvest, I have a different reason. Those people did not deserve what happened to them. If dying means we can hurt the things that killed them, then I am ready." The others nodded. Grant felt a surge of pride in his chest. "Then let us get to work. We have a war to win." Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. On the cruiser Tempest, Captain Ashley Barnes addressed her crew of 300. "The Vorath think we are prey," she said. "They think we will run and hide and beg for mercy. They do not understand what we are. Humans have been fighting wars since before we had cities. We have been killing each other for food, for land, for ideas. We are the most violent species the galaxy has ever seen." She paused and looked at the faces of her crew. Young and old, men and women, all of them ready to die. Today, we turn that violence outward. Today, we show the Vorath what happens when you make humanity angry. They killed 12,000 of our people and called it pest control. We are going to teach them what real pest control looks like. On Earth, civilians watched the news reports with fear and hope. Factories that had been making consumer goods switched to producing weapons and armor. Universities suspended classes and turned their research toward military applications. Hospitals prepared for the wounded that would soon arrive. In a small town in Kansas, a retired Marine named Frank Davis watched the president's address. The president spoke of sacrifice, of duty, of the need to protect humanity's future. Frank listened to every word. When the speech ended, he went to his closet and pulled out his old uniform. It still fit, though it was tighter than he remembered. He was 62 years old. Technically, too old for active service. He did not care. He called the local recruiting office. "I want to re-enlist," he said. "Sir, we have an age limit," the officer on the line replied. "I know. Make an exception. You are going to need everyone you can get." There was a long pause. Then the officer said, "Report to the station tomorrow at 0600. "Welcome back, Marine." Frank hung up the phone and smiled. He had thought his fighting days were over. He had been wrong. All across the Confederation, similar stories played out. Veterans came. The Crimson Reach was a cloud of gas and dust that stretched across 3 star systems. It glowed red from the light of dying stars trapped within its folds. Sensors could not penetrate more than a few thousand kilometers into its depths. Ships that entered had to rely on visual contact and short-range instruments. The Vorath had built their forward base at the heart of the nebula precisely because of these conditions. They believed no enemy would be foolish enough to attack them there. The gas would scatter targeting sensors. The dust would damage engines. Any attacking fleet would be blind and vulnerable. They had never fought humans before. Captain Grant stood on the bridge of the Valor as his fleet approached the nebula's edge. 37 ships flew in tight formation behind him, Destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and the Valor itself, the only battleship in the group. They were outnumbered almost 2-1. "All ships report ready, Captain," Commander Park said. "Navigation, take us in. All ships, follow the Valor and maintain visual contact. Do not fire until I give the order." The fleet slipped into the nebula like sharks entering dark water. The red gas closed around them, cutting off the stars. Sensors flickered and died. The only light came from their own running lights and the distant glow of the nebula itself. Grant felt his heart beating faster. This was the moment he had trained for his entire career. Everything came down to the next few hours. "Weapons hot," he ordered. "All batteries ready." "Aye, Captain. Weapons are hot." They traveled deeper into the nebula. Minutes passed in tense silence. The crew watched their screens, looking for any sign of the enemy. Then, through the red fog, shapes began to appear. Dark shadows against the crimson glow. Vorath warships. Dozens of them. Floating in formation, around a massive space station. "Contact," Lisa Park whispered. "I count 62 vessels. Carriers, battleships, cruisers. The station has heavy defensive guns. They have not seen us yet," Grant said. "The gas is hiding our approach." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Grant. We have one chance to hit them hard before they can react. Pick your targets and fire on my mark. Remember, New Harvest. Remember why we are here." He waited until every ship was in position. The Vorath fleet was still unaware. Their sensors blind in the nebula. Human eyes and human instincts had brought the fleet this close without detection. "All batteries," Grant said. "Fire." The void exploded with light. Railgun slugs tore through Vorath hulls at speeds that turned metal into plasma. Missiles streaked across the darkness, their warheads finding engines and weapon systems. The Valor's main guns spoke with a thunder that shook the entire ship, sending shells the size of cars into the side of a Vorath carrier. The first volley destroyed 12 enemy ships before they even knew they were under attack. Then the Vorath woke up. Return fire filled the space between the fleets. Green and blue energy beams sliced through the nebula, trying to find the human ships hidden in the gas. A destroyer on Grant's left flank took a direct hit and broke apart, its crew dying in seconds. "Evasive maneuvers," Grant ordered. "Keep moving. Do not let them get a lock." The battle descended into chaos. In the blinding red fog of the nebula, ships hunted each other like predators in the night. Vorath vessels were larger and more heavily armed, but they relied on their sensors to fight. Humans relied on their eyes and their instincts. On the Valor, Weapons Officer Keller was shouting coordinates to his gunners. "Target bearing 270, enemy cruiser, fire, fire, target destroyed. New target bearing 185. The ship shook as a Vorath beam clipped their shields. Damage reports flooded in from across the vessel. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Chief Gray reported. "Sealing now. We have lost the port secondary battery. Engine 3 is running hot. Can you keep us moving?" Grant asked. "I can keep us moving until this ship falls apart around us." Grant nodded. That was all he could ask. Outside, the battle raged. Human ships darted through the nebula, using the gas as cover, striking at Vorath vessels and vanishing before they could respond. The Vorath fought with brutal power, their weapons capable of destroying a human ship with a single, well-placed shot. But they could not hit what they could not see. Captain Ashley Barnes of the Tempest found herself facing a Vorath battleship twice the size of her cruiser. Her weapons were not strong enough to pierce its armor, and her engines were damaged from an earlier hit. "All hands, this is the captain," she said over the intercom. "It has been an honor serving with you." She aimed the Tempest at the battleship's engine section and pushed the throttle to maximum. The cruiser slammed into the Vorath vessel at full speed. The impact crushed the Tempest's bow and drove deep into the enemy ship. Then Barnes activated the self-destruct. The explosion consumed both vessels in a ball of nuclear fire. When the light faded, The Vorath battleship was a broken wreck, and the Tempest was gone. Grant watched the explosion from the Valor's bridge. He had known Ashley Barnes for 15 years. She had been at his wedding. She had held his children when they were babies. He would mourn her later. Right now, he had a battle to win. Press the attack, he ordered. All ships, push forward. Do not give them time to regroup. The human fleet surged forward. More ships fell on both sides, but the Vorath losses were greater. Their formations were shattered. Their command structure disrupted. They had never faced an enemy willing to fly into a nebula and fight at knife range. After 4 hours, the remaining Vorath ships began to retreat. They fled deeper into the nebula, abandoning their base and their wounded. Grant let them go. His fleet was too damaged to pursue. All ships, report status, he ordered. The numbers came in slowly. Of the 37 ships that had entered the nebula, 23 remained. The Vorath had lost over 40 vessels, including 3 carriers and 5 battleships. The space station was a ruin, its supplies and equipment destroyed. "We won," Lisa Park said softly. "We actually won. We hurt them," Grant replied. "That is not the same as winning." Not yet. He ordered the fleet to collect survivors and salvage what they could from the wreckage. Human and Vorath bodies floated in the red gas, mixed together in death as they never would have been in life. On the Vorath homeworld, High Commander Vorathos received the news of the defeat. He listened in silence as his subordinates described the attack. "They came out of the nebula like ghosts," the surviving commander reported. "We could not see them until they were already firing. Our sensors were useless. They fought like animals. Captain, like wild animals." "They are animals," Vorathos said. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. For the first time in 4,000 years, the Vorath Dominion had lost a major battle. For the first time, an enemy had struck at their heart and drawn blood. Vorathos looked at the star map showing human territory. 47 worlds, defended by a fleet that was still smaller than his own. They should be easy to conquer. But the Battle of Crimson Reach had taught him something important. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not value their own lives the way civilized beings should. They threw themselves at their enemies with a fury that bordered on madness. "They are Deathworlders," Vorathos said to himself. "We should have remembered what that means." The victory at Crimson Reach changed everything. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Species that had suffered under Vorath rule for centuries began to whisper about rebellion. Species that had remained neutral started reconsidering their positions. For the first time in 4,000 years, the Vorath Dominion looked vulnerable. Admiral Cole stood before the Joint Chiefs in New Geneva, presenting his plan for the next phase of the war. "We hurt them at Crimson Reach, but they still outnumber us. A direct assault on their core worlds would be suicide. Instead, we will do what humans have always done best. We will hunt." He pulled up a map showing Vorath supply lines, patrol routes, and communication relays. Every empire needs logistics. Ships need fuel. Soldiers need food. Commanders need information. We are going to cut all of it. We will raid their convoys, destroy their supply depots, and eliminate their patrol ships. We will make them feel unsafe everywhere they go. General Long studied the map. "This will take time. Months. Maybe years. We have time," Cole said. "They do not. Every day this war continues. Their conquered species grow more restless. Every day, more worlds consider joining our side. We do not need to beat them in one big battle. We need to bleed them slowly until they collapse." The plan was approved, and the hunt began. Commander Daniel Hayes, who had received the distress call from New Harvest, was given command of a special operations unit called the Shadow Wolves. Their mission was to strike deep into Vorath territory and cause as much damage as possible. Hayes was no longer the quiet officer who drank cold coffee on the night shift. The massacre at New Harvest had changed him. He had listened to Catherine Novak's final words 100 times. He had memorized the names of every child who died that night. Now he would make the Vorath pay. The Shadow Wolves consisted of 12 fast attack ships, each crewed by volunteers who understood they might never come home. Their first target was a Vorath supply convoy carrying food and weapons to the front lines. Hayes led the attack personally from his ship, the Night Hunter. They emerged from hyperspace behind the convoy and hit them before the escorts could react. In 12 minutes, 7 cargo ships were burning wrecks, and the escorts were scattered. Hayes broadcast a message on all Vorath frequencies. This convoy was carrying supplies for the soldiers who killed New Harvest. Consider this a receipt. He did not wait for a response. The Shadow Wolves vanished back into hyperspace before reinforcements could arrive. Over the following months, the Shadow Wolves hit target after target. Supply depots, communication relays, patrol ships caught alone in deep space. Each time, Hayes left the same message: remember New Harvest. The Vorath began to fear him. They called him the Ghost Who Hunts, a name that spread through their ranks like a virus. Soldiers stationed on frontier worlds started having nightmares about human ships appearing without warning. But Hayes was not alone. Across the war zone, human forces were taking the fight to the enemy. Marines landed on Vorath colonies and destroyed military installations before vanishing into the wilderness. Sniper teams eliminated officers from distances the Vorath thought impossible. Sabotage units planted explosives on ships and stations. The Vorath had never faced an enemy like this. Their previous conquests had surrendered after 1 or 2 major defeats. They expected formal battles, clear front lines, honorable combat between fleets. Instead, they got guerrilla warfare. They got assassination. They got terror. On the Vorath agricultural world of Praxis 7, a Marine unit led by Sergeant Maria Vasquez infiltrated the main food processing facility. This single facility provided rations for a quarter of the Dominion's military. Plant the charges every 50 meters, Maria ordered her team. Make sure nothing is left standing. Maria ordered her team. They moved through the facility like shadows, avoiding patrols and security systems. Human night vision and endurance. Evolved on a death world where predators hunted in the dark, made them almost invisible to Vorath guards. The charges were planted in 2 hours. Maria led her team to the extraction point on the far side of the facility. As they reached their shuttle, she triggered the detonation. The facility disappeared in a chain of explosions that lit up the night sky. Secondary blasts from fuel and chemical storage turned the destruction into an inferno that burned for 3 days. Before they left, Maria had one more task. Using a construction vehicle they had captured, her team carved a message into the ground in letters a kilometer tall: remember New Harvest. When Vorath reinforcements arrived, they found their facility in ruins, and the message burned into their soil. The images were broadcast across the Dominion, spreading fear wherever they went. High Commander Varathos watched the reports with growing frustration. His supply lines were bleeding. His soldiers were afraid. His allies were beginning to question whether the war was worth the cost. How are they doing this? He demanded. They have fewer ships, fewer soldiers, fewer resources. How are they winning? His military advisor, a veteran commander named Thoraxis, spoke carefully. They are not fighting the way we fight. They do not meet us in battle. They strike where we are weak and vanish before we can respond. Our soldiers are trained for conquest, not defense. We do not know how to stop an enemy we cannot see. Then find them, Varathos said. Find them and destroy them. We have tried. Every time we think we have located their base, they are already gone. They seem to know where we are and what we are planning. Their intelligence network is better than ours. Varathos slammed his armored fist on the table, cracking the surface. They are mammals. Soft, weak, short-lived mammals. We have conquered 17 species. We have ruled this region of space for 4,000 years. We will not be defeated by prey. But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The humans were not prey. They had never been prey. They were predators, wearing the skin of prey, hiding their claws until the moment they struck. The war continued. Month after month, human forces chipped away at the Vorath war machine. Convoys stopped traveling without heavy escort. Patrol ships started refusing to operate alone. Frontier colonies demanded more protection than the military could provide. Meanwhile, the species the Vorath had conquered began to stir. Rebellions broke out on 3 worlds. Resistance cells started feeding information to human intelligence. An underground railroad helped escaped slaves reach human territory. Admiral Cole watched the reports with satisfaction. "They are crumbling from the inside," he said to General Long. "Every colony they have to garrison is a ship that cannot fight us. Every rebellion they have to suppress is soldiers that cannot defend their homeworld." "How long until we can make the final push?" Long asked. "Soon. A few more months of pressure. Let them grow weaker while we grow stronger. And then we end this." On the Night Hunter, Commander Hayes received word that his wife had given birth to their first child. A daughter named Hope. He held the image of her tiny face and felt tears running down his cheeks. He had been fighting for months without rest, driven by rage and grief. But now, he had something else driving him. The war had lasted 11 months. 11 months of blood and fire, of sacrifice and loss. Thousands of humans had died. Tens of thousands of Vorath had followed them into darkness. Entire worlds had been scarred by battle. But now it was ending. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge of the Valor, looking at the view screen. Ahead of him, filling the entire display, was the Vorath homeworld, a dark planet orbiting a red giant star, its surface covered with cities that had stood for millennia. The heart of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 4,000 years. 200 human warships surrounded the planet. But they were not alone. Ships from the Krell Collective flew beside them. Volani cruisers held formation on their flanks. Thorn assault carriers waited for the signal to attack. 7 species that had suffered under Vorath rule had finally found the courage to fight back. "All fleets report ready, Admiral," Commander Park said from her station. "We await your orders." Cole looked at the planet below. Somewhere down there, High Commander Vorathos was watching his doom approach. The Vorath Defense Fleet had been shattered in a series of battles over the past 3 months. Their supply lines were cut. Their colonies were in rebellion. They had nothing left but their homeworld, and the soldiers defending it. "Open a channel," Cole said. "All frequencies. Channel open, Admiral." Cole straightened his uniform and faced the camera. "This is Admiral Nathan Cole of the Terran Confederation, commanding the Allied Liberation Fleet. We are in orbit above your homeworld, with enough firepower to glass every city on your planet. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is broken. You have one choice left." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Surrender unconditionally within 1 hour, or we will commence orbital bombardment. Every military installation will be destroyed. Every government building will be reduced to rubble. We will continue until your civilization is a memory." He waited for a response. It came faster than he expected. High Commander Vorathos appeared on the screen. He looked older than the intelligence photos had suggested. His armor was scratched and dented. His eyes, those compound orbs that had watched 17 species fall, were dim with exhaustion. "You have won," Vorathos said. His voice was flat, empty of the arrogance that had defined his species. "I will surrender personally if you guarantee the survival of my people. Your civilians will not be harmed," Cole said. "Your military leaders will stand trial for war crimes, including the massacre at New Harvest. Those are our terms." There was a long silence. Then Vorathos lowered his head. "I accept." 1 hour later, the first human shuttle landed on the Vorath homeworld. Admiral Cole led the delegation personally, accompanied by Ambassador Lauren Mitchell and a squad of heavily armed Marines. They walked through streets where Vorath citizens watched in silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. The conquerors had been conquered. High Commander Vorathos met them in the central plaza of the capital city, surrounded by his remaining officers. One by one, they placed their weapons on the ground and knelt before the humans. Vorathos was the last. He approached Cole and offered his personal sidearm, a weapon that had been in his family for 800 years. "You should have left us alone," Cole said, taking the weapon. "We never wanted war. We just wanted to live in peace. We thought you were weak." Vorathos replied, "We thought you would submit, like all the others. We are from a death world." Cole said, "We do not submit. We survive. And when survival means fighting, we fight until there is nothing left to fight." He handed the weapon to a Marine and turned to face the cameras that were broadcasting the surrender across the galaxy. "The Vorath Dominion is dissolved as of this moment. All conquered species are free. All occupied worlds are liberated. The war is over." The news spread across known space within hours. On 100 worlds, beings of a dozen species celebrated in the streets. Slaves threw off their chains. Prisoners walked out of camps. Flags that had been hidden for generations were raised in victory. On Earth, the celebration lasted for days. People gathered in every city, cheering and crying, and holding each other. They had won. Against all odds, against an enemy that had never been defeated, they had won. But not everyone celebrated. In homes across the Confederation, families mourned those who would never come home. The price of victory had been high. 3 weeks later, a memorial service was held on Earth. 10 million people gathered in person. Billions more watched from across human space. Ambassador Lauren Mitchell stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. Behind her, a wall displayed the names of every human who had died in the war. 18,000 names, from the 12,000 civilians of New Harvest to the soldiers who had fallen in battle. 12,000 voices were silenced on New Harvest, Lauren said. "Today, we speak for them. We tell the galaxy that humanity will never be prey. We will never bow to those who mistake our kindness for weakness. We came to the stars, hoping to find friends. Instead, we found an empire that saw us as insects to be crushed." She paused, her voice steady. "We showed them what insects can do when you step on their nest. We showed them what Deathworlders become when you threaten their children. And when they sent their final message begging for mercy, we sent our answer." She looked up at the stars. "We sent their SOS back in fire." The crowd erupted in cheers. Lauren let the sound wash over her for a moment. Then she raised her hand for silence. "But let us not forget the cost. Let us not forget those who gave everything so that we could stand here today. Let us remember their faces, their names, their sacrifice, and let us promise them that their deaths were not in vain." She stepped back from the podium. A single trumpet began to play, its notes drifting across the silent crowd. 10 years later, a new colony was established on the world that had once been New Harvest. The settlers named it Phoenix, after the mythical bird that rose from its own ashes. Commander Daniel Hayes, now retired from military service, was among the first colonists. He brought his wife and their daughter, Hope, who was 9 years old and full of questions about the galaxy. Daniel built a house on the site where the original administration building had stood. He planted a garden where Catherine Novak had once watched the twin suns set. In the center of the garden, he placed a simple stone marker. It read, "In memory of those who died here, your sacrifice made us stronger. Your loss made us fight. We will never forget." Hope found him there one evening, sitting by the marker as the suns painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. "Dad, why did you come back here?" she asked. "Wasn't it sad?" Daniel pulled her onto his lap and held her close. "It was sad," he said. "It still is. But sadness is not the only thing here. This place is also where we learned who we really are. We learned that we can face the worst the galaxy has to offer and still survive. Still win." He looked up at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. "The galaxy knows now. They know what happens when you push humanity too far. They know what Deathworlders can do when we stop being patient. And what is that? Hope asked. Daniel smiled. It was not a gentle smile. We make sure our enemies never threaten anyone again. We end them so completely that the next species, thinking about attacking us, decides it is not worth the risk. He kissed the top of her head. But mostly, we build places like this. We raise families. We plant gardens. We prove that we are more than just warriors. We can create as well as destroy. We can heal as well as hurt. Hope thought about this for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you think there will be another war?" "Maybe someday," Daniel said. "The galaxy is big and full of dangers. But if that day comes, we will be ready. We will always be ready. Because that is what Deathworlders do." They sat together in the fading light, father and daughter, on a world that had seen humanity at its worst and its best. Behind them, the colony of Phoenix grew and thrived, a testament to the resilience of a species that refused to die. And across the galaxy, in council chambers and military academies and government buildings, the lesson of New Harvest was taught to every species that might one day consider aggression against humanity. The lesson was simple. Do not provoke the Deathworlders. Do not threaten their homes. Do not harm their children. Because when humanity goes to war, they do not stop until the war is won. And they always win. He was fighting so that hope would grow up in a galaxy where humans were not prey, where children did not die in massacres, where the next generation could live without fear. "We are almost there," he whispered to the image. Almost there. The hunt was entering its final phase. The Vorath were weakened, isolated, afraid. All that remained was the killing blow, and humanity was ready to deliver it. On the Valor, Grant stood at a viewport and watched the nebula fade behind them. His ship was damaged but still flying. His crew was exhausted but still alive. They had done something no one else had ever done. They had made the Vorath afraid. The war was far from over. More battles would come, more deaths, more sacrifice. But the first blow had been struck. The Vorath knew now that humanity would not surrender, would not submit, would not go quietly into extinction. The Deathworlders had come to fight, and they would not stop until the war was won. Of retirement. Young people, enlisted by the millions. Scientists worked through the night to develop new weapons. Doctors trained for battlefield surgery. Humanity was waking up. And when humanity woke, the galaxy would shake. Admiral Cole stood at the window of his office, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorath were preparing their own attack. They had numbers and experience and 4,000 years of victories behind them, but they did not have what humanity had. They did not have the fury of a species pushed too far. They did not have the determination of mothers and fathers who had watched children die. They did not have the cold, burning rage of a Deathworld species that had finally been given permission to fight back. "They have no idea what is coming," Cole said to himself. No idea at all. The gathering storm was about to break. He had conquered worlds for 200 years. He had broken armies and shattered civilizations. He had never lost a war. He did not know that this war would be different. He did not know that humanity had spent its entire existence fighting for survival against impossible odds. He did not know that the soft-looking mammals from the death world called Earth had been preparing for a moment like this for their entire history. He would learn. They would all learn. The war had begun. It to Admiral Cole on Earth. "Sir," he said in his message, "they murdered 12,000 civilians and called it pest control. They killed children and called it a lesson. What are your orders?" Cole's response came within the hour. "Document everything. Preserve all evidence. Then come home. We have work to do." On Earth, the governments of the Terran Confederation held an emergency session. Leaders from every nation watched Catherine Novak's final recording. They saw the bodies. They heard the Vorath commander's words. And for the first time in 200 years, humanity began to prepare for war. The Vorath believed they had taught humanity a lesson. They believed the soft mammals from the death world called Earth would cower and submit like every other species they had conquered. They were wrong.